If you just got your severance offer, I want you to do something with me before you do anything else. Don't sign it yet. Not because there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but what you do in the next few days could meaningfully change your financial picture. And most people never realize that until it's too late. Today, I'm sharing 3 moves I made with my severance offer that most people never think to do, and something I found on my own the week after my layoff that no financial professional could tell me about, something that felt like my saving grace. Stay with me. Welcome back to 55 and Forward. I'm Alicia. If you're new here, I got laid off at 55 after 14 years with the same company on a Zoom call parked on the side of the road. I've been sharing what I've learned in real time every week on this channel. Today, we're getting into severance, what I've learned about it, what I did about it, and 3 moves that most people never make because they don't know they can. And if you just got your severance offer and you're feeling overwhelmed and out of your depth right now, this video is for you. Let me start with the basics, because I think it's important to understand what severance actually is before you decide what to do with it. Severance is a payment your employer makes when your position is eliminated. It's not automatic, and not every company offers it. The amount varies widely depending on your company and your years of service. And it almost always comes with conditions you have to agree to before you ever receive a single dollar. That last part is what most people don't fully sit with. You're being asked to sign a legal agreement when you're most likely still in shock, under a deadline with real financial consequences on both sides of the decision. That's exactly why I want you to hear what I'm about to share, because understanding your options before you sign is everything. One thing worth knowing is that severance offers are often tier-based on years of service. Understanding exactly where you fell in that formula and whether or not you're close to the next threshold of a tier is the first thing to look at when you receive an offer. Here's what I've come to believe about this moment and about this whole experience, honestly. You must advocate for yourself. Even when you feel completely out of your depth, even when the other side is an entire organization and you're sitting alone trying to figure out what you're entitled to. Even when every instinct just tells you to sign and be done with it, advocate for yourself anyway. Because here's what I know. The organization has been through it before. They have legal teams, HR teams, and processes in place. You're likely doing this for the first time in a state of shock on a deadline. The imbalance is real, and the only way to narrow it is to slow down, understand what you're being offered, and make a deliberate decision on whether to accept it or ask for more. The first move I made was to try to negotiate. And I want to be honest with you about how I felt. I was apprehensive. I won't pretend otherwise. There's something deeply uncomfortable about asking something more of an organization that just told you your position was being eliminated. It feels vulnerable. It feels like you might somehow make things worse. But here's what I kept coming back to. If I didn't ask, there was no possibility of another outcome. So I sat down and wrote a detailed email to HR, and I want to tell you how I approached it because I think the how matters more than the what. I didn't approach it as a plea. I approached it as a case. I first outlined my level of responsibility. I had overseen 3 functional areas of the department and had been promoted 3 times during my tenure. I wasn't making an emotional argument. I was just presenting facts about the value I had brought to the organization. Then I addressed the reality of what the layoff meant to me personally. I was 55 years old, being laid off when many people in my field were also being laid off. The job market for someone my age in that environment wasn't something I could just brush past, and I didn't. And I want to mention something here, because I think it's one of the most important financial realities at this age that no one talks about enough. COBRA. If you've never had to look at what COBRA costs before, brace yourself. COBRA allows you to continue your existing health insurance after a layoff, which sounds straightforward until you see the monthly premium. While you were working for your employer, they covered a significant portion of this cost. Once you're laid off, that contribution disappears completely, and you're responsible for the full amount. For a lot of people in their 50s, it's one of the biggest financial shocks of the whole experience. And it's a reality. Because this was an organizational layoff, the company's position was that they had to treat everyone the same, regardless of the individual circumstances. That policy didn't have room for exception, not for my level of responsibility, not for my age or market condition. I want you to know that, not to discourage you, but to prepare you. In a group layoff situation, the answer is often no. The system isn't designed to accommodate individual cases. And knowing that going in might make it easier to ask because you're not staking your hopes on the outcome. You're staking your self-respect on the attempt. I want to pause here to say not everyone will receive the same response, so it's absolutely worth the effort. I tried, the answer was no, and I'm okay with that because I know I advocated for myself when it counted, and I want that for you too. The second move I made was to consult a lawyer, and I want to tell you something. The severance agreement specifically said I should, which I think is worth paying attention to. When a legal document recommends that you seek the advice of a lawyer before signing it, that's not a formality. That's a signal. I found a lawyer who practiced employment law, and I saw him as a free consultation. He confirmed that the agreement was standard and that my options for negotiation were limited because of the group layoff policy. It didn't change the outcome. But here's what it did do. It gave me the confidence that I understood what I was signing, I wasn't missing anything, and I had done my due diligence in a moment where everything felt uncertain and unfamiliar. And that confidence, that quiet sense of having done the work, was worth more than I expected. Now, I want to talk with you about something that was part of my severance agreement and is very likely part of yours too. A non-disclosure agreement. Let me explain what that is. A non-disclosure agreement, sometimes called an NDA, restricts what you can say about your employer, your separation, and the terms of your severance agreement. In practical terms, it means keeping the specifics of your severance private, not sharing the amount, not sharing the terms, not making public statements about the organization that could be considered disparity. It's standard in many severance packages, and it's not necessarily something to be alarmed about, but it is something to understand before you sign, because once you do, those restrictions are legally binding. I had to sign mine in an allotted time or forfeit the severance entirely. That deadline is real and worth knowing going in. Here's something most people don't realize, and I want you to really hear this. Signing that non-disclosure agreement is also what made me eligible to collect unemployment compensation. The two are directly connected. Without the signed agreement establishing the formal terms of my separation, I could have forfeited my eligibility for unemployment compensation. That's a connection nobody explained to me. I had to figure it out myself. Always understand the full picture before you decide to sign. The third move is the one I've genuinely never heard anyone else talk about. When you separate from a company, you often have accrued vacation pay coming to you. Most people, and I mean almost everyone, almost always take it in cash. It shows up in a final paycheck and they move on without giving it a second thought. I chose to direct mine into my 401k instead. And here's the reasoning. I want you to understand not just what I did, but why. My severance was being paid out in August of that year, which meant that my salary for the year was going to be significantly higher than a usual year. And adding vacation pay on top of that would have pushed my income even further and increased my tax burden accordingly. By directing it into my 401k instead, I reduced my taxable income for that year. The money went somewhere smarter rather than just adding to a tax bill I didn't need. And here's why it felt safe to do that. And it's something I'm going to talk about in just a moment. The rule of 55. Write that down. Knowing that I could access that money penalty-free later meant that it wasn't truly locked away. It was just in a better place. A year later, and I still haven't needed to touch it. It was exactly the right call. One important thing to check is that not all employers allow you to put your accrued vacation pay into your retirement account upon separation. It depends on your specific plan documents and policy. So ask your HR department before counting on this as an option. But if it is available, please seriously consider it. Most people leave this on the table simply because nobody tells them it exists. In the first week after my layoff, before the dust had time to settle, before I had any real plan, I started searching for anything, information, financial options, anything that might actually tell me what I was working with. And that's when I found it, something called the Rule of 55. I want to pause here for a second because I want to tell you how I found it. Not from a financial advisor, not from an HR representative, not from the lawyer I consulted. I found it online, myself, while no one around me seemed to have the answers. And when I read what it was, I felt something shift. Not certainty, not relief exactly, more like, okay, there might be a path here. There might be more options than I thought. That's what the right information does in the middle of a crisis. It doesn't solve everything. So here's what the Rule of 55. If you leave or lose your job in the year you turn 55 or older, you can withdraw from that employer's 401k without the usual 10% early withdrawal penalty. The penalty normally applies to anyone withdrawing before the age of 59 and a half. The Rule of 55 removes it, specifically for people who leave their employment at the age of 55 or older. Before you count on it, here's what you need to know. Not all employers offer it. It has to be written into your plan documents. Call your 401k provider or check your plan documents to confirm before you assume that it applies to you. An important caveat, it only applies to the 401k from the employer you just left, not the old 401ks from previous employers sitting somewhere else. And that is critical. Do not roll your 401k into an IRA or another plan if you think you might need to access it. The moment you roll it over, you lose the ability to use the Rule of 55. That option disappears. And one more thing, if you draw on it using the Rule of 55, you still will owe ordinary income tax. Plan accordingly. Those withdrawals count as income, and they can affect your ACA subsidy if you have one for your health care. I haven't started withdrawing yet, but knowing that this option exists, knowing that the door is there if I need it, has made everything else about this situation feel a little less precarious. That's what the right information does. So if you just got your severance offer and you're sitting with it right now, here's what I want you to walk away with today. Take enough time to understand what you're signing and what it means. Not weeks, not 5 minutes. Give yourself enough space to think clearly. Advocate for yourself, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if you feel out of your depth, even if you think the answer will be no, try anyway. Consult a lawyer, even if it's just a free call. Know what you're agreeing to, especially when it comes to a non-disclosure agreement included in your package. Ask your HR person about directing your unused vacation time into your 401k before your last paycheck. And look up the Rule of 55 for your specific plan, because no one's going to tell you about it. No one told me. I had to find it myself, and a year later, I'm genuinely glad that I did. Next week, I'm going to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough: unemployment after a layoff at 55. Did I file? Should you? And what most people don't realize about the connection between severance and unemployment eligibility. If today's video was useful, please subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And leave me a comment. Are you sitting with a severance offer right now? Or did you already sign and wish you had known some of this sooner? I read every single comment, and I'll see you next week.